Well, Nicholas, it's so nice to have you here. It's really cool to sit with a friend and someone I admire and someone whose story I find both inspiring and just so incredibly interesting to keep learning more about. I think you have lived a life that is inspiring to many, shocking to many, and exciting to hear all about. So I really want to dive into it. Before that, though, I do want to introduce you. So first and foremost, you are a friend, but you are also the founder of your own brand, NB44, which you started after working with your father on the House of Bijan. I think there's an amazing story there of inheritance, an amazing story there of working with family, and also an incredible story of detaching and starting your own path. So
Thank
these
you.
are all things I'd love to learn about. The House of Bijan is known to be at one point the most expensive brand in the world. That was a reputation you guys had.
Right.
You dressed presidents from Ronald Reagan to George Bush Sr. and the last 5 presidents of the United States. I always saw House of Bijan growing up as this incredible establishment and sort of rite of passage for a lot of the world's leadership. And it was something my father and grandfather actually spoke to me about.
Amazing.
In conversation alongside names like Laura Piana.
Yeah.
But particularly with this US power that would travel overseas and dress people overseas, which was a very rare thing.
Sure.
So a lot of brands that were in Italy or in France that would dress people around the world, but very few American founded brands that would actually go to the Middle East and further.
Sure. Yeah.
So I'd love to hear more about that and learn more about your journey, but thank you so much for being here.
Well, I can't thank you enough. I mean, we are friends for sure. And, watching what you've done in this rapidly evolving world that we live in has been even more inspiring than, some of the things that you learn about in marketing classes in school and things like that. And getting to know you personally, having the pleasure to get to know you personally over the last however many years we've had the chance to see each other has been actually one of not only the more inspiring things about you, but also one of the coolest things about you. You are such a Renaissance man, really. You are just so disarming and genuine and generous. And I've really enjoyed.
Thank you so much.
I really enjoyed getting to know you and learning who you really are. And I'm glad that this is a great venue for us to have chats so that people can see more about who not only I am, but who you are.
Thank you so much.
And they're going to be pleasantly surprised if they don't already know.
Thank you.
Same goes. You make me look short. You make me look not so handsome and a little fat at times. So that part's not so great about our friendship, but it's okay. We're sitting down today, so that's good. Yeah.
Around the world with your host, the Gstaad Guy. We welcome you back to the Gstaad Guy podcast, sharing stories of excellence with those in the know for those who just know.
Anyways, I think it's really cool to be here to talk about what I've been doing and what I'm doing, because there's a lot to talk about, and I've had an amazing life. I've been very fortunate to have just amazing parents, a beautiful legacy, but also the support of some fantastic people that they loved my dad. They loved what he built. They loved I would hope they loved getting to know me and supporting me. And I've been an amazing beneficiary of that. And now that I'm getting a bit older, I have 2 young kids of my own. It all kind of hits a little different. So
Sure.
I'm excited to talk to you more about it. And thank
Sure.
you for having me.
Please, thank you for being here, and right back at you with all the incredible compliments. I really appreciate it. And thank you for this gift.
Yeah, of course.
Is it a good time to open it?
Yeah, please. This is just something small. If I knew we were going to open it on camera, I would have got you something better.
No, thank you so much.
A great testament to kind of the quality that we're producing, and I think you'll get some good use out of it. But it's just a great hat, and obviously it gives me some good advertising to see the Gstaad Guy wearing it.
I love it.
So
That's beautiful.
Yeah, don't ruin your hair though. So
I won't ruin the hair. I'll set it aside, but I love it. It's really beautiful. Yeah. What a beautiful hat. Thank you so much.
Thank you, man.
I'll
Thank
set
you.
it-
And you know what's interesting about that is that you can't buy that hat because NB44, which we'll talk more about, which is the first of its kind, is exclusively available to members of the brand.
Amazing.
It's the first of its kind. It's a membership-based brand. And there's a whole list of reasons that we do it that way, and we can talk about that. But really what I've done is just build upon a amazing foundation of lessons that I learned from my father, and how cool that it was like passed down from father to son, and we've now got this new generation and age of the digital world that we live in, and it's been a fun project to and creative endeavor to launch and to grow, and it's been really well received. But I'm hoping that these kinds of experiences are what kind of differentiate us, besides the clothing and all of that.
For sure.
You know?
For sure. I mean, all the people I was listing off earlier are customers, of course, but undeniably friends of yours, friends of your father's, and friends of the brands you've built.
Yeah.
And that is not an art or a way of doing business, but actually a way of being and a set of values, you know? And that is something I'd love to lean into more and understand more about how you were raised and what are the values that were of second nature to you growing up and are a part of your DNA today as a father, as a friend, as a business operator. I think everyone in this room and everyone who crosses paths with you, can immediately see that you have this incredible attention to detail about people, about items, about the room that surrounds you.
Yeah.
And I just know based on my experience with you that that's actually such a deep part of your DNA. And from the stories I've heard from you, it sounds like it was also a deep part of your father's DNA.
For sure. For sure.
So if we can go back in time,
Yeah.
I'd love to learn more about those values that were in your household that would transcend into the business.
So I had a very unique upbringing. It was for sure, very privileged. I can't say that I was, growing up in a difficult way. My mom and my dad divorced when I was a very young man. I think I was like a baby. I don't actually have any memories of them married. But my mom remarried to a very successful businessman who had billions and billions of dollars and dozens of companies, and was a real force when it came to business. And I would spend weekdays with my mom and my stepfather, and then I would spend weekends with my father. And my father, who you so beautifully described, was, of course, an amazing fashion designer and very famous and well respected, but he was an amazing father. We used to make me call him every single day. And if I didn't call him for one day, I was in big trouble, and I was scared to call him the next day. But it was almost getting worse because it was like compounding. Then if I didn't call him a second day, it would be like, maybe I'm going to get killed or something. I don't know. But the point is I never found out because I never let it get that far. But he had this amazing presence in my life, and I was his youngest kid. He had two daughters, my two sisters, and then I was the last one. I was the youngest one. So I feel like sometimes when I look back at it, I think he really used like me as like, okay, like this is my son. We're gonna really, there's gonna be a lot of tough love, but there's gonna be a lot of lessons learned. And even the last conversation I had with my father, he passed away when I was a 19-year-old kid. I was in college at the time. I was going to Pepperdine University in Malibu, which is not a bad place to be. And I wanted to just visit him. I just came to my mind when I was driving, like, let me go say hi to my dad. So I drove to Beverly Hills, to his famous store on Rodeo Drive. And I parked my car. I went in to surprise him. And usually, as you can imagine, based on what I just shared with you, he was so surprised and happy to see his son. But that day he was pissed. And when he saw me, he was like, sit down, I need to talk to you. I said, okay, well, I did something wrong. He said, Nicholas, I came to this country with relatively little. I worked very hard and look what I built. You were born with everything. You live in the nicest house, you drive the nicest car, you wear the nicest watch. You're a 19-year-old boy. What are you going to do when you're 30? I've spoiled you. And his English was a little, he wasn't born here, right? He's originally from Iran. So his English was a little broken even after many, many, many years of being in the United States. So he wasn't saying it so eloquently, I guess. He was being a little more to the point.
Which adds to your fear.
Absolutely. And so I just apologized to him. I said, listen, Dad, I don't know what I did. I'm very sorry if I did something wrong. I just came to surprise you and say hi to you. I have to go. I have to get back to school. And like many Iranian parents, school is like the most important thing. And he said, no, you have to sit down. You have to listen to me. So I said, wow, if I can't go back to school, then I really did something wrong. He walked out of the room and he came back with a jacket that he and I had designed, because at that time I was working with him part-time. He and I had designed it in Italy like 6 months before. Vicuna, crocodile detailing, beautiful silk lining, just a gorgeous jacket. And he had this big smile on his face and he said, this is your gift. And those days, that was back in 2011, that jacket would have been probably like $50,000 to $60,000.
Wow.
And he was right. I was very spoiled. I had the best car, the best watch, the best house, and I was 19 and I didn't do anything to deserve those things. But he wanted to give me this beautiful jacket at that price for his son. But he needed to give me at least 30 minutes of a tough lecture about the importance of not taking things for granted, treating people with respect, hard work, perspective of where he came from and what he had done. Anyways, he put it on me, gave me a big hug. The sleeves were a little long. We had a master tailor that worked at the store doing minor alterations at that time. And, he said he wasn't there that day. He said, do you want to wait till he comes back to fix the sleeve length? I said, yeah, let's wait. He said, yeah, I agree, you should. And he gave me a big hug and that was the last conversation I had with him. He passed away about 5 hours after that. He had a brain aneurysm, and then they took him to Cedar Sinai, the hospital near Beverly Hills, and the rest was then on my shoulders. But from that point forward, but what a beautiful conversation to have with him, and it's a great metaphor for the way he raised me. There was a lot of lessons. There was a lot of tough love. There was a lot of I never had a beer with my dad. I never said the F word around him. Like, there was a lot of strict love, but it was with the best intentions. And I was so lucky to have that conversation with him. I still have that same jacket that we designed together. It's framed in a beautiful frame in my office. I wore it for years, and then I gained some weight, so it didn't fit me anymore. And then my wife framed it, had it framed for me and gave it to me. She went into my closet one day and took it, had it framed, and surprised me with it on, I think, Father's Day or something like that one year. And so it's framed in my office, and I tell a lot of people that story. I showed it to you. Beautiful. And somebody actually was in my office the other day and they saw it and they were like, I like that jacket. They didn't know the whole story behind it, right? They just saw a framed jacket on the wall. They said, I like that jacket. Can I make a jacket like that? I said, listen, first of all, that jacket is one of one and we can't make it. Yeah. But if you want something that's something like that jacket, we can sit down, but we have to have a 30-minute conversation about hard work before we do. But that's great. To answer your question, I was raised with a lot of discipline. I was very privileged, for sure, but I have to say it wasn't always easy. And losing your father as a teenager at 19 really shaped me and that moving forward. And it was a big defining factor. And one last thing I want to say is that the way my father treated people, the way that my father made people feel, that relationship that I'm talking about, that I do and that I believe we should be building with people, the real beneficiary of that, the real person that really got to see the fruits of all of that kindness and generosity and genuine and passion was me. Because when he was no longer around, all those people cared deeply about my success. And they cared deeply about me personally and what I was doing, even as recently as when I opened this new brand. So now that I'm a dad, I really believe deeply in the fact of it's not about EBITDA, it's not about net profit, it's not about how much money you want to spend on customer acquisition. It's much deeper than that. And if you build a relationship that is of trust, respect, sincerity, passion, I would like to think that my children would be the beneficiary of that, not me, because that's what it's all about.
For sure. I mean, that's beautiful, and I'm deeply sorry for your loss.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for
a long time now, but
opening up.
It's, you know, it's life, part of life. We all go through it.
Very few people, I think, go through what you went through. And what you went through is this very unique, horrible moment, of course.
Yeah.
But where during that moment where you had incredible loss, the exact same moment you had incredible responsibility.
Yeah.
And I'd love to know more about, I mean, you're a 19-year-old college student, like your father was saying, at that moment when you walked into the store, you felt like you were on the top of the world.
Yeah.
And you had the nice watch, the nice car, and all these things, and within 5 hours, everything really changed.
Perspective changed a lot, for sure. I was definitely on the top of the world in retrospect that day I walked in to have that last conversation with my father. But following that, I found myself with a whole new responsibility, and relying heavily on the lessons that he had spent my entire life teaching me. I remember having so much amazing support, thousands of letters. I got a letter from somebody who I always, whenever I talk about this with people that are very close to me, I always talk about this letter that I got where it was so amazing. She used to be a journalist for the Huffington Post, and she's an Iranian-American journalist who came to America after the Iranian Revolution. And she said to me, I came to America as an Iranian immigrant after the revolution. And at that time, it was a very taboo time to be from my country living in America because of the hostage crisis at the embassy and I don't even know. I can't imagine. I wasn't alive at that time, but apparently it was very taboo, and she felt uncomfortable being in America as an Iranian with her Iranian name. And at that time, you saw a lot of Iranian immigrants in the U.S. changing their name from a Persian name to an American name to assimilate. And she said something to me. She said, I would see your dad on billboards smiling with this big smile ear to ear, or with President Reagan with his very Persian name. Bijan is a Persian name. And it gave us identity. It made us feel welcome. That's a pretty meaningful thing to read after you've lost your father. And how amazing, because also in addition to giving all these people a sense of comfort, he had really accomplished the American dream. He came to this country, it sounds super cliche, but he came to this country with an idea, a crazy idea, saying, I'm going to build the most expensive, highest quality, beautiful brand, and you can't come in because it's by appointment only on Rodeo Drive. And most people thought this guy's crazy. He's going to be out of business in 6 months. But 50 plus years later, it's a brand that's still synonymous with many fantastic things, knock on wood. And the point is that, he came here, he didn't change his name. He didn't hide the fact that he was an immigrant. He gave a lot of people comfort, and he started dressing presidents and Michael Jordan and Bo Derek and all these people. Bo Derek, there's an ad where I'm a baby, I'm covering my eyes, and my dad's going like this, and Bo Derek is got her trench coat open. And I mean, he just had fun. He had fun. He was passionate about it, and he gave a lot of people a lot of inspiration. Most of all me, but many other people, and he gave them a sense of belonging. And what an amazing legacy that is to leave behind. And I was honored in retrospect, from the minute that, I felt that weight on my shoulders to be able to continue that. And, maybe in some respects it was a way of not dealing with losing your dad. But it worked out well. And, I feel closer to him than I ever did before, especially now that I have 2 kids.
For sure.
Yeah.
I mean, it's beautiful. Thank you so much
Thanks.
for sharing those things. You talk about the honor and privilege of hearing all these stories from others about your father and people showing you so much love because of the love they had for him. I'd love to also, if you're comfortable sharing, learn more about what the pressure of that also looks like, because not only were you the recipient of these amazing compliments to your father and to you and your family and to this amazing business, but you now had these incredible shoes to fill as the operator of this business.
Yeah.
And you've done an amazing job in hindsight, but I can't imagine that as a 19-year-old, that path seemed that simple.
Yeah. Well, thank you, first of all, for telling me I've done an amazing job. It was a bit of sink or swim, like we've just got to keep going. But at the same time, I think what I'm doing today is a real testament to that messaging and to what I kind of experienced. I mean, starting NB44 when I turned 30 years old was kind of my own interpretation of what would make not only my father proud, but what would make me proud of myself. And, I remember hearing as a teenager, 15 years old or 16 years old, I remember I was in the car with my dad. And, he did tell me at one point, look at where I started and look at what I built. Look at where you're starting. Look what you could build. And that resonated with me for my entire life. So what I've done now is a new chapter of my family's legacy in some way. And I think it's my own creative expression. And I really wanted it to stand apart from what he built too. I wanted it to be its own thing and create something that's totally new for a new demographic, a new generation, a new customer. I think what the future holds for us with it is going to be really exciting because of all of this amazing foundation that not only I've learned and come from and had the pleasure and sometimes discomfort of experiencing, but also because of the passion and the real reason behind it. The meaning is kind of my interpretation of what I need to do as a next generation business person. Yeah. And it wasn't an easy thing, walking away from my operational responsibilities within the family business was something that worried me. But, the brand has succeeded for 50 plus years, and there's a lot of amazing people working there, and I think it will continue to succeed without me being so proactively involved in the day-to-day. And I care deeply for it, and I will be there whenever it needs me. But basically I focus on what's in front of me, raising my children, starting a business as a way to make my father proud, as a way to make myself proud. And it's been so far so good. Knock on wood.
I love that. Knock on wood. I mean, speaking of the beautiful family that you have and have raised, and the beautiful wife and that side of your life.
Yeah.
A lot of my friends who are incredible founders like you often talk about delaying starting a family and getting married because they're like, I just need to focus on my work. And I have some friends who are young dads and who are married quite young alongside that. And they tell me that it actually empowers them. And that one of those friends is actually you.
Yeah.
They told me everything changed when you started your family, and starting a business and starting a family at around the same time.
Yeah.
Is
in hindsight, that was a little bit aggressive, but
I'd love to hear more about those choices.
Yeah. I mean, first and foremost, I have an amazing partner. She's, a childhood friend.
Shout out to Roxy.
Yeah, Roxy's great. Roxy is the right partner for me, which is very important for people when they're considering, what you're talking about and starting a family and opening that chapter of
Was she
life.
always the right partner for you? Because you were friends for a long time.
She was always my friend. Yeah, we were
Right.
always very close friends. A mutual friend of ours, Rob Kardashian, introduced us, and he told me that she had a crush on me. He told her that I had a crush on her, neither of which were true at the time. But
Wow.
that's Rob, and we love him for that. And I know you have a lot of mutual friends too. Some of them have been on your show. But anyways, the point is that that foundation of friendship that we had for some years allowed us to kind of really have a deeper bond. And now in parenthood, that makes a big difference. It's still challenging at times, for sure. But yeah, I think it is an amazing decision. If you have the right partner, it makes it a lot easier, but it's not necessarily the only thing that you need. I tell a lot of people that, in losing my parents, or losing, my father, children have been the only thing that have filled that void in my heart. And they've not only filled it, but completely gone beyond that, and it's overflowing with love for them. And it does make everything worth it. It makes the story I told you about me being the beneficiary of all my father's friendships and genuine behavior and politeness and passion. It makes all of that make sense. Of course, there's a monetary motivation that goes behind that. But when you know that, one day I could not be here, and my son, Nicolas Jr., is going to, basically be able to pursue his passions and his dreams and have the support of people, it makes you work a little harder. And by the way, they're a great stress reliever at times. They're a great source of stress too, but they're a great stress reliever at times, because when you have a long day, or you're going through it, or that's difficult, or something's not going the way you want it, you can kind of just tune it out and just be with them. And so I love that. And obviously there's a balance you have to do, because we have to be responsible parents. And of course, you can't be at work all the time and be away from them, which is hard when you're starting a business, which is why when you said, starting a business and having kids at the same time I thought it was a bit aggressive, but luckily I had a great partner. And Roxy is definitely an amazing partner, and she's a very strong girl. She's only 5 feet tall, but she somehow seems taller than you. So
big personality.
Yeah,
that's all that matters.
Yeah, Napoleon complex for sure.
No.
Yeah. Axel's over there. My Axel's always with me. He's basically my right hand, and he's nodding his head.
When you talk about the shared values that you and Roxy have, you and your wife, and those values that you are raising your kids with, I'd love to talk about those and what they mean to you, and how many of those were developed by you and Roxy versus inherited maybe even by your parents and your father.
It's a great question. First and foremost, I think mom knows best. So she's definitely the matriarch, and she's done an amazing job, because she's also a very busy and successful business person in her own right, which is helpful too for many reasons in our relationship personally. But we support each other because we want to be, a united front in front of the kids. Her parents are married for, I think, 40 plus years. So that's amazing to see that. And I hope that, my kids will have the same feeling one day about me and Roxy. Quite a bit of the way that I look at what I do with my children is emulating my own experience with my father, for sure. But there were a lot of things about my dad that, I look back at and I say, maybe he was a bit too tough in those respects. My kids are still young. My daughter's 3 and my son's 1.5. So there's time for me to kind of develop as a parent. But, I think having a good friendship of trust and not being, too hard on your kids is important. That story I told you about, I had to call my dad every single day. And if I didn't, I was scared to call him the next day, but it was almost getting worse because it was compounding. I think that's a bit intense. And I think it was great because it built this foundation where I felt his constant presence, especially as a child of divorce. I didn't feel like any neglect or anything, but there was a generational gap. There was a cultural gap. Being born here in America, he was born in Iran, and I'm excited for my journey as a parent with my kids. Being a young dad, at least I think I'm a young dad, and also being both of the same cultural background. So we'll have to walk that balance, but parenting is not an easy job. I've only been a parent for 3 years, and I can see that it's probably going to be the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. But it is definitely the most fulfilling.
For sure.
Yeah.
You inherited tremendous responsibility when you were 19.
Yeah.
And that was a circumstance of the situation you found yourself in.
Yeah.
Right. But then you chose tremendous responsibility when you were young. Yeah. And that's a clear choice. And you're very proud of that choice. And I'm wondering why? Why did you feel the need to be a father at a young age?
That's a great question. I think losing my father at a young age had a big impact on that.
Yep.
I told you just voluntarily like a minute ago that I never had a beer with my dad. I was too young. I mean, of course I lost him too early, but I think that had a big factor in wanting to have a kid, and wanting to basically get married at a young age as well. The other thing is I had tremendous responsibility in my 20s. I wore a suit and tie every single day. I had a legacy that I was trying to not only uphold but augment. And being out and chasing girls, which I did my fair share of that too, but that wasn't the priority. And I couldn't do what I needed to do emotionally with my father's business and my family's business and my journey as an entrepreneur and as a business person if I was focused on some of those things. So it was kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. I was always kind of interested in settling down and being in a relationship, and then obviously that takes its own course, and then having the right partner and starting this journey of parenthood. To your point, you're never ready, in my opinion. But men, it's hard for us to get to that place mentally. And a lot of men, they want more. And I always thought I needed more to kind of have kids. Like, look at how I was raised. I can't do that for my kids. But what I didn't realize when I started my company and when I had my first child was that it actually pushed me and motivated me a lot in a way that I could have never imagined. So I tell a lot of my close friends, especially if I think they have the right partner, I say, don't wait. Like, you're never going to feel ready. And it's going to be the best decision you ever made because of the joy, the responsibility, and the just meaning it adds to your life. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you.
I admire family businesses that work because I think family is difficult just as family.
Sure.
just having dinner with family is a challenge for most.
For sure.
So working with family is a whole other ball game, and working with family and making that successful is even crazier.
Very difficult. Very difficult. And I have to tell you, I'm not sure if I hadn't gone through what I went through in terms of losing my father at such a young age, if being in the family business would have been the right path for me. It is very difficult. And I can't even begin to explain what I mean by that. And I see multi-generational businesses, and it's just like, wow, that's fantastic. That's really, I take my hat off to them. But also at the same time, you do have some benefits in terms of like, I have a vocational calling and I want to do this, and this is something that I feel like I want to do. I guess that's not always constant in everybody's journey. To your point, I did do it by choice. I did want to join. I did want to be a fashion designer. I did want to join the family business. It actually became a great bonding experience for me as a teenager with my father. I mean, but also, let me just put it in perspective for you. As a teenager, and my father was collaborating with Bugatti, designing like, what teenage boy would not want to be like? I want to do that, And before that, just think, this is, and by the way, my dad could be this strategic. I wouldn't put it past him. God rest his soul. Before that, when I was like in, I don't know, like probably 9 or 10 or 11-year-old boy, he was doing Michael Jordan cologne with Michael Jordan at like the height of Jordan's career. So like, even back then I was like, damn, I want to do that. So, you know, I think like if he was in finance or something, maybe it would have been a different story. But like as a young guy, like Michael Jordan, cool clothes, beautiful women, nice cars. You get to design things. You get to go to Italy. We manufacture all of our clothing now through so many generations by hand in Italy, which is the best place in the world to manufacture clothing. You know, going to Italy with him, I have amazing memories there with him. Yeah, it wasn't that hard of a. They didn't have to push me that hard. In fact, he didn't have to push me at all. So
that sounds beautiful.
Yeah, I was very fortunate in that respect. Yeah, for sure.
Beautiful.
This podcast is brought to you by Poubelle by the Gstaad Guy, bringing you charms hand-painted with enamel on 925 sterling silver, allowing you to express all the things you love and all the things you might question, from Riva bateaux to backgammon boards and caviar tins to paddle rackets. There is a Poubelle charm or completed set for everyone in the know. Thank you so much for watching and enjoy the podcast.
Would you want to do something similar with your son?
No. Okay, that's a great question. Sure, of course, if he wants to. I think this is an amazing question, and I love this question. What I want for my son is to do whatever he wants to do, and I will support him however I can. He should have no pressure to run NB44. He should have no pressure to be involved in Bijan. He should do whatever he wants to do, and I will be behind him 100%, even if that makes him feel like maybe sometimes I'm not behind him. I don't want him to go through what I went through. I don't want him to feel like there's any pressure to keep my name alive or keep my legacy or my hard work alive. He should create his own path, and he should do whatever he wants to do. If I'm so fortunate that he chooses that he wants to do what I do, I'll be very happy. But I'll be equally happy if he wants to do something else, and I'm supporting him in that.
I mean, speaking of other family businesses and not your own, how do you feel about family businesses being able to stay within families for a long period of time, where operators end up prioritizing the fact that they're related to someone versus whether or not they're the right person for the job?
It's an interesting question. I think it obviously depends on many factors, but there is for sure a innate ability, if it's a close relative in some respects, to do things in an effective way. And let me just briefly explain. Second generation businesses, obviously I thought a lot about this and I studied a lot about this in my 20s. I had the opportunity to speak one time with John Scully, and John Scully is the guy who's famous for firing Steve Jobs. But he's so much more than that. And he has an amazing business story in American business. And what he said about that whole experience to me was that, I didn't think about the founder enough in the vision of the company. And second generation business people have to respect the past, the present, and the future. The past being the founder and his or her original vision. The present with hard work, just like the founder most probably had. And the future with innovation and how we're going to serve the next generation. That's a very challenging thing to do, but when you are related to somebody, sometimes the DNA of that organization is within you. I mean, it's just second nature. So I honestly feel as if, it can work out well when a son or, a relative is involved in the next generation of the business. But, there are, of course, case-by-case basis. Another thing I was very lucky about in my experience in my 20s, working within my family business, was we were predominantly catering maybe not predominantly, but in a good amount of it was catering to clients in countries where that's the norm, not, an exception. In America, you don't see it as often. In America, you see a lot of people build businesses, and then the next generation kind of sells it, or an operator comes in, a CEO comes in and manages the asset for the company or for the family or for the shareholders. In the Middle East, in Africa, in Europe, in Asia especially, no, you're running your family business. Like you were basically, the only reason you were born was because you have to run this business. So I was very fortunate that, when my father passed away, that spotlight just kind of shifted. And it was shifted with open arms and embrace by our client base, rather than kind of like, who's this young kid? And by the way, they had every right to be like, who's this young kid? But anyways, I think I'm all for it. But also, having experienced it, as you said, for my own children, if they want to do something different, I'm going to support them 100%.
I love that.
Yeah. So
I studied at university in Boston called Babson College, which is a school of business and entrepreneurship.
Sure, yeah.
And a lot of the students there were family business students from all over the world.
Yeah.
And there was I'm not from a family business. I did work with my father on a startup for a short stint, but we don't have a generational family business. But I've always been deeply curious about family businesses, because I thought maybe one day that could be my path.
Yeah.
And I took this class called Wealth Creation, Preservation, and Destruction.
Oh, wow.
And the reason why it's called that in that sequence is because the founder often creates the wealth and the empire. The second generation usually preserves it because they watched the hard work that went in. And the third often destroys because they weren't exposed to the founder, as you mentioned. And every once in a while, there's a breakthrough.
Sure.
And the breakthrough lasts generations. And part of the coursework was to figure out, what is that breakthrough?
Yeah.
And when I would look at all these stories of families that could break past the second generation,
right,
there seemed to be this reoccurring trend of the parent does whatever they can for their kids to acquire skills elsewhere, but the values that make the business what it is are at home. And the values sounds like a generic word. It's like good values. Like, what does that mean? It's actually a very, very specific on what that person values. And usually, which is very clear to me with your business and with you and with what you tell me about your father, what the people value when they run these amazing businesses is also valued at home.
Wow. Okay.
And that's this incredible respect, these incredible manners, incredible communication of like being present. And when those things are very well passed down between family members, things last forever.
Wow.
And
I believe that.
I believe it because I think you're the product of it, and that's why I bring it up.
I'm learning from you. That's amazing. You're going to be an amazing dad. Honestly, that's very deep. And I think that's very accurate. And that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I'm deeply honored that you think that's my upbringing and also what I'm trying to give to my children. I mean, I like to think that I'm a pretty self-aware person, but maybe not that self-aware.
Right. I mean, when I came into your studio,
and
when I've been to the store that you and your father ran, you feel like you're actually in a home, and not just architecturally. I think that's the easy part to do, right? It's actually in terms of this familial feel. And I wasn't unique to that. It's not a me thing. Although I know you do care for me deeply, you show that same care and kindness to anyone that walks in the door, whether or not it's the guy cleaning your store or the guy who's the highest spender in your store.
Yeah.
And you've told me incredible stories about your father.
Yeah.
With different politicians and different people, which are fully aligned with that. So I'd love to hear some of those stories if you're comfortable sharing, and learn more about how the household reflected your experiences at work as well.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I think it is pretty spot on in terms of when people do come to our stores or they come to my personal design studio at NB44, it should feel a bit different. It should feel like they are in a home. And in fact, it's funny you say that, because one of the lessons that I learned as a young man from my father was that when somebody comes in, you have to really welcome them as if they're in your home. And one of the analogies that he would explain is like, you wouldn't just let somebody walk into your house and open your fridge as a guest. You would offer them something to drink, and you would open the fridge and pour them, whatever they asked for, right? And he kind of analogized that with when somebody walks into the retail operation of a boutique, they don't just open a closet and start looking at like what's hanging on the rack. You or somebody that works there has to open it and say, let me show you something, and stand up when they walk in the door. And in fact, I have a funny story, and I'll have to just try and kind of redact some names. But when I was a teenager, no, I was not a teenager. I was in my 20s. I was, and he's still a dear friend today. I was in the boutique and on Rodeo Drive, and a gentleman walked in, and he didn't recognize me, and didn't, of course, why would he? And he didn't know who I was, and he thought I was somebody who was maybe like a sales associate at the store, and said, "Can I see some pants?" And I said, "Yeah, of course, no problem. What size trousers do you wear?" And there's so many little lessons that I learned also along the years. Like, for example, if he says I'm a 34, bring a 36. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And bring the 34 as well, but also bring the 36. And actually, even my team personally, it's been fun to see that now they've become very discriminative shoppers. Like, they'll go into a place and somebody won't ask them if they can bring them a size or something for like 5 minutes. They'll just like walk out and be pissed. But
So
anyways,
funny.
the point is, it's like over the years, I've picked up these things about like, you bring a size up, a size down, and you kind of hear what they say, and then you kind of translate that in your head.
I'm a 36, and I always optimistically say 34. I hope it can fit, and never does. But
My dad used to say he's a 34, and they used to give him a 36 and change the label to say 34 because they didn't want him to be upset.
so good.
But anyways, the point is that this gentleman walks in, he says, "Can I have a pair of pants?" So I ran to the back. I ran because that's also what I have to do. Is like, you have this person that's in your home, they're asking for something. Don't stroll to get it. Like, go, and like, their time is very valuable and very precious. So I ran to the back. I get the few pairs of pants that he asked for, and I come to the front, and I start walking with him through the boutique and showing him around the boutique and telling him, this is an original Fernando Botero painting. It's painted by Mr. Botero, who named it The Rich when he saw it here. And, then I take him to another area. I start showing him some tie sets. And I say, these are all pure silk tie sets. They're all limited edition. They're all numbered 1 of 1. And I start just, kind of telling him. And I could tell he was already kind of very knowledgeable about where he was. And then we had a dressing room and we still have it. It's a dressing room that it's 18th century French armoire. And it's just this beautiful antique. And so I told him, I said, this is a beautiful 18th century French armoire. It was a gorgeous antique. But my father, when he moved his store from Fifth Avenue, or he closed his store on Fifth Avenue and opened the store opened the store on Rodeo Drive, he brought this armoire from New York, and he ruined it because he removed the back of it. And when I open the armoire, it's got no back, and it's almost like Narnia, where it like continues into the dressing room, right? And the guy was like so shocked by this, but then he looked at me and said, "Did you say your father?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "Are you related to Bijan?" He said, "Yeah, that was my father." He said, "Oh my God, I'm so embarrassed. I'm so sorry." And I was like, "Why?" He's like, I didn't know. I wouldn't have asked you to go and get try those pants for me." And first of all, I thought it was so funny. I was like, "Please don't be embarrassed. It's my job. That's what I'm here to do." But I was also kind of young, and I was excited because I was like, "Oh, now he feels bad. He's got to buy the pants." But anyways,
Did he buy the pants?
he bought the pants,
Okay,
and he
good.
bought a few other things, and it was very nice. And he was a very nice man, and we had a great conversation. And then at the end, And at that time, I was always like, at that time, I felt pretty disarmed, and I was, kind of being a little bit more casual than I would be if I was just dealing with somebody as a client. And he said, well, when he came time to pay for his purchases, he said, let me give you my business card. And when he handed me his business card, I saw the flag of a country, and then I saw a lot of writing, and then I saw a lot of titles, and then I saw a lot of military titles, and I saw the card and I looked at him and I said, I'm so embarrassed. I'm so sorry. I had no idea. I would have been more proper. And we had this great kind of like moment where he was embarrassed that he didn't know who I was, and then I was embarrassed that I didn't know who he was. And a few weeks later, I got a letter from him, handwritten letter, one of the most beautiful written letters, which basically said, I waited till I was at the pinnacle of my career to walk in those doors. And I walked in those doors, and I was basically didn't know, what I was looking for. I just wanted to be there. And I asked for a pair of pants, and I met you, and your father would have been very proud of you. And I learned many lessons about dressing from my father, and it was a very meaningful letter. And so the what's also cool about that is throughout my 20s, I got to kind of pick and choose the things that I liked about a lot of people, whether it was, the commander-in-chief of a military, or whether it was, somebody that I work with in Italy, or whether it was a friend. I got to cherry pick the things that I thought were really meaningful and implement them in my own life. And that letter was an amazing representation of something I loved. So I also love that now. I like to write letters to people, and I like to send them things and kind of try and build this relationship in that manner. So that was a cool story. And, I just think that, these stories that we have, I mean, that's like the most boring one of them all, but we can go into more of them. But I mean, it's just, it's kind of a testament to the quality, the legacy, the passion, the relationship. As you mentioned, somebody comes into your house, they're a guest in your house, and that's how it should be. And a lot of amazing brands are doing this now. I mean, I see AP with their AP house. I see a lot of brands building these intimate settings. NB44 is that. When you come to an NB44 design studio, you're not in a retail store. That whole place is for you. I mean, we have, of course, hanging clothing, but that entire hanging clothing, if we have the pleasure of welcoming one of our members in person, because most of our business is done by shipping all around the world. But when we have the pleasure of welcoming somebody to our actual traditional, brick and mortar, which is a design studio, not a retail establishment, the entire place is their size. They're in their home. Everything that's hanging there is already pre-curated for them. Outfits have already been put together thinking for them. And that's how it should be. That's how it should be. That's the respect that I deserve when I spend $8,000 for a jacket. Mm-hmm. But I think it's pretty astonishing to see people have the confidence to buy lifetime pieces. And I'm trying not to get too much into the finances of it, but like, these are expensive, large purchases, and they're doing it through an e-commerce model.
I mean, I love a lot of those points you made about luxury and the add to cart experience not being luxurious, and having to worry about things is not a luxurious experience. And it brings me back to a question that I discuss often with friends of mine, with colleagues, about, okay, in that case, what is luxury? And what is a luxury business? And what businesses are truly luxurious? Yeah. And I'm not a big philosophy guy, but I happened to study philosophy in one class in university. And we studied Freud. Mm-hmm. And Sigmund Freud often spoke about this idea that part of the human experience is going back to the experience in the womb. We're cared for, we're fed, we're warm, we're safe. And that's what we all strive for, right? We want our family safe, we want our family fed. Yeah. Want to be in this warmth. Yeah. And really that's, to me, the definition of luxury. Yeah. It's being cocooned in this sort of womb, right? Where you have to make the least amount of decisions possible. Yeah. Like, think of the most luxurious hotels in the world. Yes. They know you. Yes. You're the right size for your slippers and your robe are already in the room. Yes. Your preferences are known, your allergies are known. You don't have to make decisions. Yeah. You know what we would do at a Bijan hotel or at an NB44 hotel? We would
hang the flag of your country outside the hotel. So when you get there, you see the flag of your country.
Perfect.
They should do that. I told the Waldorf Astoria to do that. They were like, "Are you crazy?"
It's a lot of flags. It's a lot of switching. I think when they have like a president or a king come in, they do similar.
Yeah.
But with a lot of the businesses that my friends tell me, "Oh, this is my favorite luxury business," or that, and I challenge that and I say, to me, that's not true luxury. Very few players are left. And those are the players that really handhold you, and the players that are keeping you cocooned in this nest of warmth, of excellence, of expression, and of experience of buying these things in the first place.
Yes.
And Loro Piana is an excellent example,
and
always has been. Audemars Piguet is an excellent example. Acqua di Parma fragrance, even an exceptional example. And it all comes back to these core values that happen at the foundation level that then are inherited for years. And when you look at these brands' mission statements, it's always been a part of that mission. And that's something that you touched on today, and that's something that you're actually digitizing. And that's, I think, done for one of the first times ever where someone's kind of...
This is very true. You're absolutely right. Caring, the things that make our brands successful are actually kind of deep rooted in human nature in terms of being cared for, becoming part of a tribe. And it makes my job as a CEO and founder and designer a lot easier. So
it's beautiful. I love that. Well, in the very Gstaad Guy fashion, I often talk about the things I love that are fantastique and the things I don't love so much that are à la poubelle.
Yeah.
And I know that you love some of those videos.
I do. I like them all the time.
Thank you. I appreciate it. You're a day one supporter.
Yeah, I know.
I was day one.
By the way, you when you told me that you could see when I followed you for the first time, I was like, oh shit. I can't act cool. He knows that I've been a fan since day
I'm honored. I'm honored. I'm absolutely honored. I would love to know what in the world that you find yourself in.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a long list on both sides, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But what are one or two things that are à la poubelle? Could be a way of acting, could be a norm that you wish could change. And on the flip side, what are some things that are fantastique? And that could be something you're grateful for, something that's just great about the time we find ourselves in as well.
Oh, I love this. I wish I'd prepared more for this, because this I could have had a good time coming up with some things for this. Okay, I think à la poubelle should be people who are not polite. I think generally you need to be polite to everybody you meet, and you never know who you're meeting, and you never know how that person might come back into your life or your children one day's life. Fantastique would be to be extremely generous and gifting. And it doesn't necessarily need to be monetarily generous. It could be letters, thank you cards, expressions of appreciation. You know, I have a member in the Middle East that they love Chick-fil-A. I send them a Chick-fil-A sauce. FedEx in whatever country that I sent it to was like, what is in the contents of this box? I was like, it's Chick-fil-A sauce.
That's so funny. I love that you bring up the letters, because you've mentioned letters a few times in this podcast. And, you know, very few people I know who are in their 30s talk about letters, send letters, or even receive them. And in your office, you have this beautiful area that's just full of these letters that are to you and to your father, and they have so much sentimental value. And they're not just letters received. You also write letters and send them out. And I think it's such a beautiful thing.
I love it. And I still get photos from people, you know, sending me letters that were written by my dad, you know, within my lifetime and before my lifetime. And I think that that's very fantastique, and we should definitely bring it back. And it doesn't have to be letters. It could be note cards. It could be just thank you cards. It could be just cards.
Just anything beyond the WhatsApp.
Totally. À la poubelle, I have to say, I think linen, 100% linen, is a huge mistake. You should always mix it with like linen and silk, or linen and wool, or linen and cotton, because who wants to be all wrinkled like that? And whenever people tell me that they want, like a couple times I've been caught where people are like, oh, I wouldn't wear something like that because it wrinkles. I'm like, fantastique.
I'm actually wearing linen and silk.
Fantastique. See? And it's beautiful. I noticed this.
Thank
It's
you
a
so
gorgeous
much.
color, which is
Thank you.
these neutral colors, I think are also fantastique. I think color in general is fantastique. I think that it's part of my DNA. My father loved color. Now he was a little overboard with the color at times with all the yellow and reds and purples. And it's funny, actually, I used to joke with him. I used to be like, Dad, you design with these colors like red and purple and blue and orange. And then somebody just buys a blue suit. But that was part of the journey. I think that color can be done very tastefully. I think using muted colors, using darker versions of colors are very interesting for men, because I have to tell you, most people who wear my clothing that we design clothing for, I would assume that they are people that a lot of people want to give compliments to, just to kind of like break the ice. Like if I'm sitting across from somebody who's a very important person, the first thing I want to do is say, hey, I love I love this color that you're wearing, or I love this watch, or I love just something, right? And if I'm sitting there wearing a Bordeaux kangaroo leather jacket,
Is that kangaroo leather?
somebody is going to say, I love that jacket, because it's a statement. And,
Yeah.
and if it's done tastefully, if it's not done tastefully, then it could actually be like kind of like, tongue in cheek about the whole thing. But I think there are ways to do it tastefully. And that would be fantastic.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your story
Oh my God. Thank you
and for being
giving me
here.
the opportunity.
You're a tremendous storyteller, founder, father, and friend. And it's really been an honor to hear all of this and sit with you again.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And congratulations on this amazing show.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Gstaad Guy podcast. If you're keen to learn more, please follow along by engaging with our social channels on Instagram, TikTok, Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts. And we look forward to seeing you next week. Merci beaucoup, à la prochaine, and a big hug from the Gstaad Guy.